Welcome to this episode of CLOUT is Not Currency podcast, where we have conversations about worth, value, and influence. I am your host, Blessing Mukosha, aka Big Money B, because I'm focused on cheddar, I'm focused on cheese, and I don't let a bum chick get a touch up on me. This podcast is going to be about a few different topics. We're going to talk about automated vehicles. We're also going to talk about Pinterest versus Instagram analytics for creators, continuing our social media strategy theme that we've had going since last episode 7. And we're also going to talk about art versus influence. I wanted to reflect on Thee Stallion. She recently released a feature verse with Shenseiya, and a lot of the feedback that I was seeing on the internet was, people feel like they're over it. They want to see more variety from Megan, and they believe that the talent is there. But on the other hand, a lot of people is, seeing that Megan really enjoying life and living life, and the fact that we still have her, and she's still putting herself out in the public despite everything she's gone through. If you don't know, Megan, during her, one of the biggest early years of her career, she lost both her mother and her grandmother, and she was also the victim of a shooting. So she's had a lot to deal with. So if her music is not really, pushing the creative limits, but she's got the lifestyle, does this substantiate, is this enough? So that's why I want to talk about art versus influence. So if you're interested in all of those topics, if you want to talk about Teslas, you're interested in analytics, and you want to talk about art versus influence in the context of Megan Thee Stallion and female rap, then keep listening to this podcast, keep it locked. And if you would like an ad-free version of this podcast, or an ad-free version of the video of this podcast, which is on my YouTube channel, Blessing Mukosha, then join my Patreon. So with the Patreon, you get ad-free content, exclusive behind-the-scenes content, and you support all of my content, which is not just this podcast, but I also produce daily fashion content and a few other things that you will enjoy, including tutorials and workshops on productivity and technology. So if you like all of that and you want to support Planet Blessing, then make sure that you join my Patreon page, and everything that you get on there is going to be available. So as soon as you subscribe to the Patreon, you've got everything that's on the Patreon. So don't worry if you're looking for content that's already been out, you'll be able to get that when you join as a subscriber. So the first topic is about Tesla and these automated driverless cars. I wanted to sort of do a legal check-in and update and see why this is the story, what's going on, and just what should we expect from the automated vehicle market. Because from what I've seen, and I listen to my Financial Times every morning, and from what I've seen, there definitely is a strong amount of technology that's being produced and tested. Like we're definitely at the stage where automated vehicles and automated technology is commonplace. But the issue is, there doesn't actually seem to be a practical legal definition or a legal avenue to drive a car with no controls yet. And it just doesn't really seem clear when we're going to get that. So the thing I'm referencing is that there was a case in 2016 where a Tesla driving on autopilot killed 2 people. So although this was in California, so although this happened in 2016, manslaughter charges were recently brought. So this kind of raised the issue again. It kicked up, the conversation that's been ongoing. If you get an automated car and that car kills someone, are you culpable? Are you liable? Is that manslaughter? So under current law in England, so that's where I'm based, I live in London. So under current law, you are guilty of manslaughter if you kill someone with your car. And you have to be in control of the vehicle at all times. So the legal assumption under current law is always going to be that you were in control of that vehicle. Not being in control of that vehicle is part and parcel of the offense, because you drove your car recklessly and killed somebody. So that's how you end up with a manslaughter charge. there's nothing in our current legal framework that recognizes any type of diminished responsibility or vacated culpability due to a car's self-driving technology being activated. That's why if you are a Bessie and a Tessie, and you have a Tesla, the autopilot feature, which comes as standard, or any of the other additional full self-driving features, they're only driver assistance aids. You cannot use the car independently. And there was a case actually where a driver in Nottingham, I believe this was 2018, was banned from driving because they sat, so their Tesla was on the motorway on autopilot, and then they swapped into the passenger side and let it drive. So the current status of the law on autonomous vehicles, like I said, it's just not clearly stated. The last time we had news on this was in April 2021, so last year. The UK government set out a legal definition for vehicles with so-called automated lane keeping systems, so ALKS technology. So this is the first type of automated driving that's going to be allowed. So it is only for 37 miles an hour, so speeds up to 37 miles an hour on the motorway. And you can fall under the legal definition of a self-driving vehicle for this particular technology as long as they receive GB type approval and there is no evidence to challenge the vehicle's ability to self-drive. And in order to use these features, the driver is going to need to be able to take control of the vehicle within 10 seconds. So all of this is the fact that we haven't had any news since this, and this is automated lane keeping technology. This is to keep you inside the lane. This isn't the whip is whipping itself. Like, the car is not driving itself. And that's why there's been quite a lot of criticism for the UK government and car manufacturer Tesla for sort of misleading the public that these cars are fully autonomous, or that fully automated driving is, realistically on the horizon. In reality, I think the technology is definitely developing, but we are just not at a stage where the law permits you to drive a fully autonomous car. Like, we're not there yet. I think that if it was possible for us to reduce culpability for a death due to a car's self-driving technology being activated, this raises major issues around product liability and responsibility of car manufacturers for the deaths of people by the cars driven by the customers. It's just such a massive and vast amount of liability to insure against that, in my opinion, this is going to make the accessibility of autonomous cars even more difficult, because it's going to be even more expensive. Because if you think about it, for the cost of every car, the manufacturer, so Tesla, for example, might be in a position where they have to factor in the cost of insuring themselves against everybody who might drive their car and kill somebody. They have to have enough, and the premium on driving these cars, if the law says, okay, we recognize that if you are driving a self-driving vehicle, and so long as you, the driver, are able to set it up correctly, if there is a fault in that technology and it kills someone, the product manufacturer is going to be liable because they supplied a faulty product that caused the death. But can you imagine what that's gonna do to the car insurance industry? If insurance was already expensive, can you imagine what it's gonna like? It just seems so impossibly vast, and there just seems to be such a lack of established law and framework that we can use. So wherever cars fall on the automated self-driving scale, it doesn't really matter, because the automated lane keeping system is the only type of technology that we can even see on the horizon. And even that is limited to 37 miles an hour. And the driver has to be able to take control of the car within 10 seconds. So this case, the manslaughter charges, being filed, and this whole issue about, are you guilty if you kill someone with an automated car. Yeah, for now, very much. You are guilty of manslaughter. There is no legal way to drive an automated vehicle, but the technology is still developing, and I think it'll be interesting to see how quickly the law catches up. Just to remind you that if you want references to all of the articles that I read to prepare for this podcast and all of the topics I'm talking about, then join the Patreon, because then you'll be able to get access to our show notes where I have all the references to everything that's discussed in the episodes. So just letting you know. I want to thank our sponsor, Surfshark VPN. So Surfshark VPN ensures that you are protected as you navigate the internet. And the good thing about it is that it protects all of your information. So that's down to your sensitive banking information, things like your passwords, your browsing history, and so on. But another benefit is that it has a location switcher. So if you need to, you can switch your location in order to be able to access content or other things that you need to access from a different geographical location. And if you travel a lot, which I know is currently quite hard with the pandemic, but if you travel a lot or you're not at home, you can still get all your creature comforts from home if you use Surfshark VPN. So they have an offer right now for 83% off your first 3 months. And also you get a 30-day money-back guarantee. Check that out. To use it, use the link in the description of this episode, or use my code Blessing Mukosha. That's BLESSING MUKOSHA for your access to the 83% off discount. So I hope you enjoy that. It's got the 30-day money back guarantee. So thank you again to Surfshark for sponsoring this episode, and now we'll get into the content. Okay, so I wanted to talk about Instagram and Pinterest, and Instagram and Pinterest analytics specifically. So last episode, I talked about best practices and content strategies if you're creating on YouTube and Instagram. And for the part of it where I talked about distribution, which is step 3 in my 4-step content creation process, when I talked about distribution, I suggested using Pinterest and having automations that push your content to Pinterest, say when you post on YouTube, when you post on Instagram, and so on. So I wanted to talk more about Instagram and Pinterest analytics, how you should read them and why you should read them. So I'm going to put up some screen recordings on the side whilst I talk. So make sure you head over to my YouTube channel if you're listening to this so you can see what I'm talking about here. It's youtube.com/blessingmukosha1. And you can just type in Blessing Mukosha, you'll find me. So on Instagram, you have a full breakdown of your analytics. So you are able to see who follows you by gender breakdown, location breakdown. You can also go down and see the times. So when are they the most active? So you can basically get to know where your followers are and when they're active. So if you're catering to different time zones, for example, on No Ghostwriter, we have 3 primary time zones that we cater to. We cater to the UK, the East Coast, so East Coast of Northern America, and South Africa. But we also cater to the West Coast as well. So this means that knowing when our audience is most active is helpful. So we found that we have basically equal mirror spikes. So when I was looking at the analytics, I can see that my US audience are active, around the same times as my UK audience are active, but they're doing it on different times of the day. So that's why we have a 12-hour posting round. We post at 3 a.m. and we post at 3 p.m. Of course, we automate it so you don't have to be awake, but that's the way that we're able to push out our content to our audience at the most optimum time. We got that by reading into our analytics. Instagram is also going to show you post by post analytics. So what are your best posts in any particular period? And within the posts themselves, it shows you deeper analytics. So how many people interacted with this? What did Instagram do with this content? Did it put it on your explore page? Did it push it to people through hashtags? Like, there's so many different ways that it's telling you. So analytics is essentially the algorithm showing you what it's done and sharing with what it can do. And it's so powerful to have a strong grasp of your analytics, because you're able to enter into this sort of productive dialogue with your content where you understand what's working, where it's working, and why. So the reason I wanted to talk about Instagram versus Pinterest analytics is because Pinterest provides deep and very different types of analytics and gives you a little bit more information about your followers than Instagram does. So why creators need to get on Pinterest ASAP, already for the reasons I discussed last episode, that it's an excellent distributor of your content. You know, if your content is already out there in the universe, link it straight back to your official channels on Pinterest, and you get that benefit of that AI image search to bring more people to your content and to grow. So if you're taking killer content, get it on Pinterest. It'll be pushed out. People will see it. So when you're thinking about, you know, where do I invest my time? How do I invest my time? How do I, you know, make sure that my content is getting out to as many people as I can? Then Pinterest is really for you. And the cool thing about Pinterest analytics, when you get into them and you dig deep, Pinterest shows you not just what your audience is interacting with on your page, but it also tells you what else they like on Pinterest. And so it says all the different categories of content that your audience likes and what percentage, you know, what's the rate that they engage with this content more than the average Pinterest user. And there are many cases where, you know, you can find that your audience are interested in things that you hadn't thought to create, or it just affirms that you're creating the right stuff. And you can use reverse engineering and mirror principles. You know, if your audience on Instagram is pretty much the same as your audience on Pinterest when you look at location, gender, age, then you can presume that what Pinterest is telling you about the other things your audience is interested in, they're also interested about that on Instagram, and you can start to create more content that they want to see. So Pinterest has pretty much told me what the girl that engages with my content is into. She's planning her life. She's motivated. You know, she knows what she wants. She's got marriage is down the line, but she wants to have a beautiful home. She wants to style herself beautifully. You know, she wants to surround herself with, you know, affirmation, manifestation. So it's really inspired me to think more about different types of posts and content that I can put out. And I'm thinking of motivational things that I can put out because I can see from Pinterest that this is what they want. And it's going to work on Instagram because I'm pushing that content around and around in a cycle. So I'm really excited to implement that. And we'll talk more in later podcasts about it. But if you're not on Pinterest, get on it, try it. And of course, follow my Pinterest, Blessing Mukosha, and you can see all of my mood boards, my lookbooks, and everything like that. So yeah, Pinterest analytics are really taking things in such an excellent direction for creators. I think Pinterest is really the future. So check out Pinterest, get onto Pinterest, and make sure you follow me. Okay, so on to our last topic for this episode. I wanted to talk about art versus influence. So I mentioned in the introduction to this topic about Megan Thee Stallion and her recent song with Shenseea. So on Friday, we were doing No Ghostwriter Radio. We've launched our 24-hour female rap radio station. So head to noghostwriter.com/radio if you're interested in 24-hour female rap radio. And we're also going to have a live radio show every Friday at 9 o'clock. So we were listening to that new Shenseea, and Megan's verse was Megan's verse. It was what it was. But I saw a lot of media commentary online of people basically being like, is this all we're getting? You know, are we going to get more than this from Megan? And it raised interesting questions because I think that, you know, a lot of people feel like talent-wise, Megan is there. You know, but in terms of choices, they're not being made well. So musical choices, artistic choices, you know, things are okay and they're there. But, you know, Megan isn't pushing things artistically. You know, she hasn't given us, she promised us for her debut album that we would get a range, and we didn't get that. And because we didn't get that range and we've gotten so much of the same content, a lot of people were talking about, oh, we're just getting WAP times 2, we're getting WAP part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And a lot of people are feeling like, you know, the content is just same old. We want to see something fresh and new. And it got me into this, you know, I was just thinking, and this is a very unscripted part of the episode. So I literally had this idea on a call with my best friend just before I started recording. So if it's a bit jangled, I apologize. But it got me thinking just about whether influencer culture has ruined art. And I say that because, you know, so many people who create art, are also creating content and building influence, and it's a way of marketing their art. So if you do, so I know people who do commission paintings, for example. You know, it works for them to post a picture of them with the completed piece. It's like the art versus the artist, you know, those types of posts that appear on social media. But sometimes, you know, I can understand the pressure, because it's like, yes, I know I look good and I know you want to see me, but I'm here posting my art. And, you know, if you you're starting to build influence, you start to get, I'm just speaking hypothetically here. I'm really not referencing any particular person. It's just more like the hypothetical scenario of you started out to post pictures of your canvases, but now you're getting brand collabs, you're getting this. All of a sudden, your content, your best performing content are your pictures, your videos, your lifestyle images, and the art becomes secondary. You know, that's what influencer culture does. And as somebody who is actively creating content to build influence, it's funny because my arts, I would say the things that I consider my art, like these are, obviously my creative content is my art. You know, all of it, the video, the audio, the everything, that's art. But for me, I would say that's my legal work and that's my rapping. You know, legal and rap, those are the things I consider like, these are my crafts. I really, really put my 10,000 hours into these. And for me, being a person that is creating content and putting myself out there, I've always felt very not self-conscious, self-aware, I would say, about building my influence based on my crafts, because I don't mind people enjoying content, you know, liking the way I style my outfits or post my pictures, because I haven't chosen being a stylist or being a videographer as my thing. You know, that's not my craft. That's not my 10,000 hours. You know, I've got those skills because you wouldn't like my content if it looked bad, but I don't have that same pressure. So if you're putting out your work and, you know, influence is like, you know, so let's say your influence is outstripping, you know, your work. Now all of a sudden, what was supposed to be your craft, that thing that keeps you disciplined, the thing that helps you focus your choices, you know, why you do certain things, why you don't do certain things. So for me, you know, the reason I still listen to Financial Times every single day, the reason why I make sure I know what's going on is because I've chosen to be a barrister. You know, the reason why I do podcasts and YouTube videos is because I constantly want to develop my it's because I constantly want to develop my advocacy skills. I read because I need to be able to take in different ideas. I have online discussions and engage in an online community around debating art and culture, because as long as I can hold conversations with different types of people, I'll be an excellent barrister. In terms of my rap craft, you know, there are elements of it that are slow burning. I'm working on getting to the studio, but even that, I will put that work out and I will perform as a barrister not in private, but just not in public, because I don't want that to be the basis upon which I'm influential. Because if that's the reason why, you know, you want to engage with me, I'm not ready for what that means. I'm not ready necessarily to commit to, one thing. And I don't necessarily know yet how I feel about people receiving me as a barrister and a rapper at the same time. That's my journey. That's in my own time. When it comes to rappers or artists or anyone that's putting things out like Megan, though, you did commit to a discipline and a craft. You committed to rap. And if you've committed to rap, your influence should be around your rap. And where we get to a point where it's like, it's more about the collaborations, it's more about, the look, the aesthetic, the vibe, and it's not about the art. That is what influencer culture does. The culture of influence is, to be a vibe. You're communicating to people like, this is the vibe of me, and people want that vibe. That's one thing. But when you're putting out a creative art form, where is the development in the art? Where is the, showing range in the art? Influence doesn't care whether or not your art is good. Influencer culture doesn't need you to be talented. Influencer culture doesn't need you to have put in 10,000 hours. Influencer culture just needs you to have the kind of, vibe that people are on said, platform to catch, So the tension between art and influence just starts to just muddy the waters, and you can see it's just what becomes more important. What becomes more important. And I worry, that is why I said I'm taking my time before I, fully realize myself as a rapping barrister. I've got time to do it because I've got a whole year, so I've got time to work that out. I'm thinking about that. And when you look at artists who have clearly thought about where they want their art to go, what they're there for, they can be the coolest and most interesting, wacky, engaging people, but you still know they're there to do a thing. And you know what the thing they're there to do is, because this person has put in time and thought and intention behind building their craft. And I feel like so many, especially, I really feel this for female rap, because you guys know that's my niche. But I see it so much where it's like the hunger to rap is there. And then as soon as the fame, the influence, the clout comes in, the hunger to rap gets suppressed or gets drowned out. And it's almost like this thing. And so that is my rambling series of thoughts on art versus culture. But art versus influencer culture. I would love to hear, what your thoughts are on this conversation. I know that wasn't as structured as usual. I just was more just brain dumping, this tension, because I don't necessarily think anybody is wrong. I don't think that there's anything bad about getting caught up in the glitz and the glamour. I just think that if you want to be an influencer, be one. But if you want to be a rapper, you need to distinguish yourself around a craft that you clearly put time and effort into. And if everything else was to fall away, you still have solid gold art. And I don't see that prioritization for Megan. I don't see that prioritization as a general market observation in rap and hip hop right now. And as it stands as an art form, I think that we can have these conversations and be like, well, what do we want? Do we want rappers or do we want influencers? Tell me your thoughts. Use the hashtag CLOUT to talk about this podcast. Okay, so that concludes this week's episode of CLOUT is Not Currency podcast. I hope that this episode has inspired you to think differently about value, worth, and influence, and empowered you in some way. If you enjoyed this episode, then please follow the podcast on your favorite streaming provider and leave us a review. We need a 5-star review so more people can get to know this podcast and join us for these weekly conversations on worth, value, and influence. Make sure that you follow me at Blessing Mukosha on any platform of choice, and check out my YouTube channel as well, where you'll be able to get video of these episodes and also see my weekly vlogs and other productivity and tech content. Thank you for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I will see you in next week's episode. Bye.